Hello everyone, welcome back to my Draft Day Sports College Basketball 2016 online game. We're with St John's at the moment, and first thing is obviously, and I apologise to you guys, I obviously missed last week's upload. I was busy travelling to a football, for anyone who is from the USA, a soccer game to watch my local team play. And it meant that I was out of the sort of office for the whole day really, so I didn't have a chance to upload, which is not too bad in a sense that we've got quite a lot to catch up on today. So a lot has changed. So as you can probably see by the record up here, we've had a bit of a rough period really, probably because I haven't been able to keep an eye on the team as much over the past week, in terms of uploading depth charts and just making sure that things were running smoothly. I kind of missed that, so a little bit of my responsibility really. Fortunately, our coach, Mr. Fury, has been neglected for about a week. But in the same sense, we've got a lot to catch up on. So I think last time we sort of caught up on this team and sort of had a look at how they were doing. They were around sort of the 5. I think we were about 5-1 or 5-2. We started the season really well, and we'd had sort of that opening win against Georgetown. We then lost to Butler, but then we went on a really good winning streak where we won four games, all sort of one after the other really. And I sort of mentioned in the last episode that I felt that this next period was going to be really difficult for us, and it has proved that way really. So first off, we had Creighton, who are one of the general managers who are actual sort of human general managers in this league, in this Big East for us. So I knew this was going to be a tough game. I knew the scout report was going to be completely off, and well, we didn't perform very well really. You can see obviously we came in at the half with a narrow 3-point lead, and the second half we just were unable to keep up with them really. As I sort of mentioned last time, I think Abraham Love is an excellent sort of frontline player, and I'd love to have someone like this. And he obviously did very well against us, winning the player of the game again. In terms of sort of how we performed, we obviously didn't shoot very well, which is disappointing, but we're not a particularly good shooting team anyway, so that's something to expect anyway. We obviously, like I've mentioned many times before, we live and die by the 3-point line a lot, which was obviously the case in this as well. We had some good shooting numbers there, which was good to see. But you can see, looking across, we obviously massively out-rebounded them, which was great, but obviously it didn't have as much of an impact as we thought it would. It was the turnovers that really killed us. So it was their backcourt that really did a lot of their damage against us. I mean, we had 13 turnovers in our backcourt rotation of Brown and Cook, which wasn't very good, which didn't particularly help. And as you can see, look, the points in the paint, they had 42 of their 78 points in the paint against us, with Love obviously dominating. So disappointing one that I thought we would lose anyway, to be honest. And we did really. It was quite close, but a frustrating one. We then went obviously off to DePaul, and this was a game that I expected us to get a result in. Thinking about it a couple of weeks ago, but we again, this was disappointing. We didn't really turn up. We again shot pretty poorly. We committed way too many turnovers. It looks like Cook's been struggling, so perhaps we might need to have a look at that as we recap over the next couple of games, and whether we bring him out of the rotation a little bit and give someone else a go really. 7 turnovers is just not good enough from our starting point guard. And yeah, I mean, they obviously had a really good game against us. Brian Willis, who's been sort of leading the league in scoring in our sort of conference, has obviously won the player of the game and put up some really good numbers for DePaul. So not particularly great there. And then we went into probably the toughest game that we're going to face this year. When we look at the league, we'll see why. But obviously, when we touched on last time, Seton Hall, I think, were unbeaten, or were 5-1 as well, and they'd beaten a lot of the top conference teams that I would have expected to be up there, likes of Georgetown and Butler. But we managed to stay quite close in this game. We obviously had a good sort of second half rally, which was good to see. But Satan Hall are definitely the team to beat in our conference this year, and they kind of proved it against us with some really good numbers. I mean, they've got that combination which is lethal in college basketball, and definitely lethal in this game, in that they have Kevin Hayes, who's a really good backcourt scorer, and then the likes of Brian Belair's, who's probably the best centre I've seen in the whole college universe here that we have. His stats are incredible. We'll just have a quick look at him, so you can see what I mean. Really, suffered an injury now, but he's really solid player. He's good at drawing fouls. He's got some good athleticism. He's a fairly solid rebounder, which really does help. Just sort of flicking through. Let's see if we can get Hayes up, so we can see that. And again, Hayes, he's not a particularly fantastic passer of the ball, but he's a really good scorer and he's a really good defender, and that obviously is paying dividends for them. Obviously, he's got a real good range to his game as well. He can hit the three, particularly that corner three. That's really good, 53% there, and he's successful when he drives into the rim, which is really good. So again, obviously we against the likes of, where are we? I've lost where I was now. Because I'm looking at the wrong team. Against the likes of Satan Hall, I was fairly happy in this one that we managed to keep it so close. Obviously, again, they dominated in the paint, but I think that's because we're having to play a little bit of a muddle in sort of our forward positions. In that we, I had to, obviously Dan Butler had to come in at centre for this game, because the likes of Jim Claggett was actually injured. He suffered, I think it was a sprained injury, if I remember rightly. And what's great about this game is obviously I didn't have the chance to adjust the lineup to make the changes, but it looks like from the setup, it looks like that the game sort of acknowledged that he's injured and pulled him out, which is really good. It means if you don't want to micromanage, you don't have to. But for me, I feel that's one of the benefits that I could bring to this team is obviously micromanaging some of the players around. So it meant that we had to make some serious adjustments that the AI did, and obviously I feel that if we'd have probably had Jim Claggett in there against Belair's in the centre position, we might have been a bit closer in this game. So in that sense, it was not too bad a loss as I thought it would be. We then went to Georgetown, and obviously they were looking to get a bit of revenge against us, where we won the opening day game there on our turf. So obviously we went to Georgetown and we got absolutely annihilated. We didn't even look like coming into this one and winning it. Obviously Jim Claggett was back for this game, but it didn't have any impact. We just shot terribly. We just didn't get in this game at all. They just completely destroyed us with Tyson Drexler, point guard, having a really good game for them, obviously winning the player of the game. And they shot really well against us. I mean, from 3.9 they were 41%, from normal they were nearly 50%, so they had a really good game, and we just didn't turn up. We then went to Butler, and which was good to see. Obviously we then sort of suffered 4 back-to-back losses throughout the couple of weeks that I was sort of missed in this game, and we managed to bounce back really well. We had a really sort of strong game against Butler. Obviously they came out really well, and we just edged the half, and then we absolutely dominated the second half, which was good to see. We got our shooting numbers up a little bit. Obviously our 3-point wasn't particularly great, but we got those up a bit, which is really good to see. And we slowly started to manage those turnovers. I think possibly where Butler are not a high pressing team, they don't force particularly that many steals, probably did help us a little bit in that we don't have the greatest passing backcourt, so we have to adjust a little bit for that. But it was really good to see that obviously then Jim Claggett came back in this his second game, and he made the impact really for us in the centre position, shooting a really good 6 of 14, 21 points, and also grabbing some rebounds and a couple of steals there, which was good. So that sort of nudged us back up into sort of the middle of the pack territory, which was really good to see. And then we've just recently played Villanova again. them obviously trying to get some revenge against us in their court, and obviously won quite convincingly. They had a really fantastic first half, getting 59 points in any sort of college game in any half is really good, and bearing in mind the averages are normally around about 85 points or so. So again, they shot really well against us. We just had no answer for them. We didn't shoot particularly well. No one really had any real standout games. Obviously, E.K. Augustine had a bit of an okay game. He didn't shoot particularly well. Jim Claggett obviously had some issues there. I'm not sure whether that was an injury or whether that was due to foul trouble, because he only had 3 fouls and he only played 12 minutes. But it probably may have been foul trouble, because obviously Chad Lee, the player of the game, had a really good performance against us, grabbing 12 rebounds and 21 points, 2 blocks and 4 assists. He obviously did very well. So obviously we lost that one, and we're now sort of looking ahead towards the next set of games, really, and we'll touch on that in a little bit later. But obviously when we first sort of had this last episode, I think we were sort of surfing around the number 23 in the rankings, in the RPI rankings. But now obviously with that sort of terrible performance, we've now dropped right the way down to 41. So we're in terms of trying to get a seed into the sort of the finals and sort of the end postseason for college basketball, we need to up our game a little bit. If we look at the standings, you can see where we were. I think second. We were obviously just behind Seton Hall. We're now sort of middling in around fourth, sort of definitely in the middle of the pack. And I think that's probably where we hopefully will aim to end up, I think, this season. In that, I think we're probably better than a lot of these teams that are below us. Obviously, we've got back-to-back wins against Butler now. We've gone 1-1 against DePaul. I think we've gone 0-1 against Creighton. But the likes of Marquette, I think we won a game against them. I'm not sure if we've played Providence yet. And we've gone 1-1 against Georgetown Villanova, and lost obviously that one game to Seton Hall. So it's going to be a difficult one. I mean, we'll look at the schedule sort of coming forward in a second, but I just wanted to sort of touch on that. We're doing okay. I mean, if we look at what our sort of team goals were for this year, was to qualify for the NCAA tournament, which will be difficult anyway. Finishing top half of the conference, so we're doing that at the moment. We've only got to win 15 games, and we've obviously already won 13. So far we can almost tick off one of the 4 things, which is really good this early in the season. But the other thing I was going to touch on was just how good Seton Hall have been. Like I also said, that we narrowly lost them by 7 points in the last sim without the likes of Claggett. So perhaps there's an opportunity there for us to get a win against them and make a bit of a statement when we play them next time round. But they've gone 11-1, and they've been outstanding. I mean, they haven't lost at home, and they've obviously lost a couple away. Obviously, they've played a couple of exhibition games as well. But the fact they're 11-0 at home is just insane. They've won 6 straight now, which is incredible. And we sort of touched on some of their performances as well, but I mean they are the team to beat in our conference, and I think they could go pretty far in terms of the NCAA finals as well. But that's if they keep everyone healthy. Obviously Belair's suffered a slight injury, broken nose, so that's going to knock them quite a bit. So it'll be interesting to see if they can keep up this form whilst they've obviously got Belair's out. So that'll be tough for them. In terms of how our guys are doing, I mean, if you look at our sort of depth chart, obviously I haven't changed it because I haven't been around, but I'm wondering, guys, whether we drop Terence Cook. I mean, I know he's got good ball handling ability and fairly solid passing ability, but I'm worried about his turnovers. I'm worried about whether he's being effective enough for us. I mean, he's obviously turned over the ball 2.9 times per game. He's shooting okay. I mean, is there an argument that we give someone else a go? I mean, obviously we're playing Kurt Brown at sort of the shooting guard position at the moment, and in terms of his abilities, obviously averaging 2.3 just at shooting guard. Is there an argument that we perhaps put him in there? I mean, or do we look at someone like Austin Ricks, who we haven't really given much time to because of his atrocious defence? Or Do we look at maybe sort of lining up and putting Scott back in? I think he hasn't played any games this year, but I think is there an argument that we readjust this? I mean, McDevitt obviously he's been playing a lot of minutes off the bench for us, and he's been shooting not too well for us actually. But is there an argument that we readjust the backcourt? I mean, we had a couple of games there where we were very turnover heavy, but I don't know. I don't really see anyone who can really give us a bit of a jump. I mean, so he's 36 and 57 in his passing and handling. His court intelligence isn't particularly great, so that's probably one of the reasons why he might turn the ball over quite a lot as well. In terms of Kurt Brown, he's not much better. Obviously, Austin Ricks is not particularly a great passer or handler, but he's got a little bit better court intelligence. Do we think that would make a difference? Kurt Scott, is obviously a terrible passer, so he's not a suggestion for point guard. Perhaps we are just stuck. We are just limited with Terence Cook for now, because we just don't have anyone else who can fill that role. Maybe we might have to just bite the bullet there and sit with that. Obviously, likes of Augustin has still been doing fairly well for us. His shooting numbers haven't been particularly good, but I think that's because we rely a lot on him to shoot the ball, and because we don't have many other players who can. The likes of obviously Claggett, like I said, he's had that injury. He's still been doing pretty well for us. I mean, he's averaging 10 and 5, which is not too bad considering he's fairly undersized for the centre position anyway. So that's sort of where we're at, guys. I mean, we're sort of just in that fourth position, sort of level with Butler. Hopefully we can stay above them and push back into sort of that top 3 position over the next couple of weeks. In terms of who we've got coming up next, we've got the likes of Providence, Marquette, and probably Xavier might, before next week, we might have a game against them. What day are we on at the moment? So we're on the 5th, so we might possibly get that Marquette game in. I'm not sure if we'll get the Xavier game in before we sort of catch up next time. And then we've sort of got, a couple of games against Creighton, DePaul and Seton Hall. So obviously we've not got many games left in terms of our conference play. I think for me, the next 2 games against the likes of Providence and Marquette and Xavier are going to be the big 3 ones. Obviously, if we look at the standings, so Providence, Xavier, Marquette are sort of below us, and we will need to get wins against those guys in order to sort of stay in our position. I'd like to get some revenge against Creighton. That'll be tough. Obviously, like I said, they've got a human general manager coach as well, so he'll probably try and mix it up against us. And then we've got 2 tough games against DePaul and Seton Hall before we sort of finish off. So we've probably got 2 more episodes before we sort of get to the end of the sort of conference games, and we'll do a little bit of a season review and see where we are. And then we might just go into, rather than talking about sort of obviously St John's, if we don't make the postseason, hopefully we will, but if we don't, then we'll just sort of start recapping sort of generalised around the Big East, and we'll follow the Big East teams through the NCAA sort of finals that happen in college basketball. So in terms of the scouting against the likes of Providence and Marquette, let's take a little look at that. One thing I should touch on is what's been really good to see this year is we haven't had any real player disagreements. So we had one I think quite early on. I think it's probably gone off of my email list now, but we had one early on, I think after 1 or 2 games, but we haven't had any after that. So that's really good to see that we've got a good balance of personnel. We haven't got anyone who's causing arguments or causing issues for us, which is good. So in terms of the next couple of games, we've got Providence next, and like I said, our scouting report isn't particularly great, and I moan on that every episode, I feel like, but we don't have this detailed player scouting because our scout isn't very good. In terms of the matchups, you can see as the backcourt's fairly split. I mean, they obviously got the advantage of point guard. They sort of feel at shooting guard. We've got the advantage of point guard. At shooting guard, they've got the advantage. Obviously, that we've mentioned, I think last time when we played Providence, Tanner and Augustine are fairly similar mix. I think obviously Tanner hasn't been doing it in terms of his points per game and stuff, but I think in terms of the stats, sort of the ratings, they're very similar. Seals and Turner, it's interesting to see they've balanced it off there. I mean, obviously we know Seals isn't a big point scorer for us, or a big guy on the box scores, but he does a lot of the stuff that doesn't really get seen. So interesting, they feel that Seals can match Turner, who's one of their sort of better performers this year at Providence. And then obviously Claggett seems to have the advantage against Hull, and then they feel the bench is fairly mixed. So I'm confident. I am confident. Hopefully we can get a result here. The big thing will be whether we can stop Kevin Brown, who's their star really. To show you his rating, so you can sort of see. But he's their sort of star shooting guard. He's an okay defender. But he's really good on the shot really. So you can see he dominates. He's definitely a guy who can shoot from anywhere really in terms of beyond the arc. So be interested to see whether we can slow him down a bit and hold him up. And then obviously we've got Marquette after that. Another game that I'm confident that we can get a win. Although they seem to feel that we haven't really got any advantage apart from our bench. It seems like it's a fairly even game. Hard getting the better of Seals there. So maybe this will be a difficult game for us. But I think the fact that Marquette are sort of bottom 2 and 10 in the rankings, and have not really shown any signs of being a decent college roster this year, I'm confident we can get the result there. Obviously it'll be a tough one going by the scouting reports. But interestingly, that they say that the best player is Sinek Karp, and obviously Seals is against him. But I'm confident because I think Seals is obviously a fairly decent player, and he, he's not a great defender, but he seems to have been seems to be able to match people on the boards, and he seems to have a good discipline on defense as well. Although his defense isn't particularly great, but it's interesting. Let's see. So Sinek Karp's obviously is their best player, but interestingly, he's not dominating as much as I thought he would on a team that's fairly weak. So hopefully we can just limit him down a bit and get the result there, and then a couple of wins would hopefully set us up nicely for the sort of the final 4 games. Xavier, obviously we've played them and beat them, and we'll be at home, so hopefully that's good. And then, like I sort of mentioned already, Creighton, the human general manager, will be a tough one. DePaul will be a tough one, I think, and Seton Hall, I'm not expecting to win that. So it's good in the sense that we've got a good balance in terms of how we finish. We're 3 at home, 3 away. So I'm thinking in terms of how it will work. I think if we can just hold our home games and nick 1 away, then that will give us 4 wins. It'll probably jump us up to around about 10 wins, which would probably keep us where we are, depending on other results obviously. But if we can keep that up, that would be really good. So that's where we're sort of heading going forward. Let's take a look at our leaders in sort of our conference and see who's sort of leading the stats really. So in obviously the Big East, obviously Kevin Hayes of Seton Hall's leading the points per game. Augustine's in the top 6 now. Again, obviously he's not shooting too well, but we rely on him to shoot the ball a lot. But this is the difference thing, is obviously they've got Belair's and Hayes who are in the top points per game. So they've got 2 really good inside-out scorers, which does make a massive difference. Looking at the assists per game, so we've got, again, looks like Hancock of DePaul's leading it with 5.7 sort of assists per game. For us, obviously, we don't have a great backcourt, so I'm not expecting us to be anywhere near as high on this. But interestingly, there's no one really standing out as a great point guard. I mean, 5.7 is mediocre, really. It's not particularly a great stat. On the rebounds, obviously, again, Belair's is just dominating, which is one of the reasons why Seton Hall are doing so well. Interestingly, Billy Rencher of Marquette, who haven't been performing very well, has been doing really well on the boards, and so has Hart. So interesting, they seem to grab the rebounds in terms of their starting sort of front court, but they obviously are not effective enough in the back court to really make it an advantage. So interesting, that one. So in terms of us, obviously we've got Claggett up there and Seals, so our starting guys are sort of doing okay, which is not too bad considering we were having to sort of play a little bit of a mixed match in terms of our front court to actually make it work a bit. In terms of blocks, Abraham Love, obviously he dominated us in our sort of recent games, and he's obviously a fairly good defender, so he's grabbing the blocks. Ben Seals, interestingly, is in the top 10. Obviously, grabbing a couple of blocks for us for 1.1, so that's good. Belair's again inside sort of bordering the top 5. Probably is in the top 5 if you think about it, with him matching the 4th position. Just shows how dominant he is. I mean, I'll be really interested to see how he does, because I think Satan Hall will obviously go to hopefully to the finals, to the NCAA sort of tournament. Be interested to see how he does against some of the top conference guys, some of the guys who will likely get drafted. See whether he can keep up this performance, or whether it's the fact that in our conference we don't have any real dominant post players across the board really. Looking at steals, looks like Augustine of Creighton's sort of edging that one up in terms of leading that. Claggett and Augustine for us sort of sitting in there a little bit. Again, Abraham Love, one of the top guys, sitting in there as well in the top 5. So interesting stats. Let's just have a look. 3-point percentage, yeah. So obviously we live and die by the 3-point percentage, and Cook has obviously been excellent from 3-point range in terms of his shooting percentage. So that's interesting. Obviously we commented on his turnovers being pretty poor. If we sort of scroll down, you can sort of see he had that sort of jump game. That's probably, maybe I over sort of anticipated that, in terms of he had a couple of bad games and he sort of levelled back down. So maybe I over exaggerated the issue there. But obviously his advantage for us is that he has some really good range, and he tends to knock down the 3-point really well for us, which is really helpful. Let's have a look. Have we got anyone with triple doubles? Any double doubles? Yeah, so obviously Belair's obviously dominating that. Nice to see Jim Claggett just get the one. It's good to see it working fairly well. In terms of efficiency per game, Belair's is dominating that, but obviously our 2 guys, Augustine and Claggett, have been really influential for us. Have obviously sort of done fairly well in terms of their efficiency numbers, which is good. Let's have a little look at turnovers. So we haven't got the worst point guard in terms of turnovers. I'm not sure if we combine those two together we'd have one of the worst backcourts, but looks like from the top of it, looks like Xavier have got a fairly poor backcourt in terms of they've got one guy there who's 3rd, a guy there 5th, and a guy there at 9th. So they've got like 3 of the top 10 positions in terms of turnovers. So that's interesting. I wonder if that's because they run quite a fast-paced offense, maybe, but we'll see. So the only thing I was going to touch on, guys, before we sort of get into sort of the end final season games and sort of come back and see whether we're going to sort of make it into sort of the end of season stuff, really. The top 30 Norton candidates have been announced. So this is like the award that's given for someone who demonstrates good basketball ability and good academic ability. So generally they have to have some good GPA ratings and be performing fairly well on the college scene as well. So the list has been cut to like the top 30, and I'm not going to go into and show you them now. When we did the sort of end of season awards recap, I'll probably show you there and explain what it means then. But we haven't got anyone on there. But interestingly, one thing I was going to touch on was that we've only got, I think, one guy from our conference in here, and surprise, surprise, guess who it is? Mr. Belair's, who is just having a fantastic season. I'd be really interested. I mean, obviously, the way this game is sort of set up, it links to the pro game, which you may have seen my Let's Play series of it as well. I think you can link the 16 game to the 17 game, but there obviously is a college basketball 2017 now as well, and we haven't touched on that yet because I haven't got the game yet. But you can link them up to the actual pro game and see how players perform in the pro game. But it'd be really interesting to see whether, obviously Belair's, whether he, if he does, I think, what is he at the moment? He's a senior, so whether if he does declare and whether he does get drafted, it'd be really interesting to see his career right the way through. But obviously this game will show you if people in theory get drafted or get into the draft list. So we'll have to keep an eye and see whether he does, because he's obviously having a really good season. He's probably one of those. I don't think he would go in the first round. He doesn't have anything that really stands out, but we'll have to keep an eye on that and see. Perhaps if we do look at the draft list of who does get into the draft list, we'll have a look and see what sort of ratings they have, because that'll help us going forward, because if we've got someone like that, we'll probably want to be aware that they might only want to be here for like one season and be done. Maybe we can try and track that. But as I sort of said, guys, we're sort of in that top 4. We're sort of still battling out in the middle of the pack. We have some really, really big games coming up against the likes of Marquette and Xavier. Oh no, I've done it again, haven't I? Keep forgetting jumps to the team that you were last on. So we've got some really big games coming up against likes of Providence, Marquette and Xavier. I think those 3 games are going to be the deciding factor about whether we stay where we are, whether we push on, or whether we drop down and we're then sort of worrying about our coaching position here at St John's. But we'll keep it up. But until next time, guys, if you have any thoughts or comments on what we could do, obviously in terms of Coach Fury, we need to put someone back in. Perhaps we need to think about it. Or if you've got any ideas on terms of the strategy. I haven't changed the strategy because I think I've mentioned several times before, a lot of our guys play triangle really well, so that's why I've sort of stuck with that. I haven't changed the defense up. I felt man to man. We haven't really got any top players. We've got just a lot of mediocre depth, so that's why I've sort of stuck with man to man, because even if we hit foul trouble, the people we put in are necessarily not going to be better than the people we've currently started with, really, apart from like of EK Augustine and maybe Claggett, but they, it's borderline anyway at best. So, but anyway, if you have any ideas on sort of strategy or on personnel or on anything we perhaps want to think about for next season or going into the postseason, we might want to consider trying to think about matchups and things. Obviously, if we get there, or if there's anything you want to sort of see in terms of sort of the postseason, I'll probably just do like I said. If we don't make it, we'll do sort of recaps of the Big East, and then we'll go into the NCAA sort of tournament, and I'll just do a bit of a regular commentary on what's happening, how it's progressing there, and probably a bit more detail on sort of the finals and maybe the Final Four and things like that. But any comments, just put them in the comments box below. And obviously, if you like the episode, hit that like button. And if you want to follow each episode as it comes out when it's uploaded, just hit that subscribe button. You can keep it; it'll be sent to you as soon as it's uploaded.